Hello, I'm Mark Vahrmeyer. I'm a UKCP registered psychotherapist and also one of the founders of Brighton and Hove Psychotherapy. Today I'm bringing you what is hopefully a short video entitled How to Stop a Panic Attack. Before I actually go through the steps involved in stopping a panic attack, I'm going to talk a little bit about what is a panic attack. So to start off, the best way of thinking about this is that it is a state of being overwhelmed. But rather than a process of feeling overwhelmed in our mind or our thoughts, if there is such a thing, it's a state of being overwhelmed in our body. To be specific, it's our autonomic nervous system that becomes overwhelmed and shifts or moves into a state of being in fight or flight, which is possibly a term you've heard before. Incidentally, the opposite of fight or flight is called rest and digest, and that's a state of being where we can relax our shoulders, where we have wide peripheral vision and we can be in the world calm, absorbing everything that's going on around us. Now, most panic attacks have very little, if anything at all, to do with what's going on in the here and now. So often people will say, well, I have a panic attack without any reason at all. And that's partly true. Panic attacks can come on at any given moment, but usually there's a trigger. The problem is that we don't necessarily know what the trigger is, or at least we're not conscious of what the trigger is. So essentially the trigger might be in our unconscious. That's a bigger process in psychotherapy of actually working out what unconscious traumas there are, what experiences we've had that might lead to panic attacks. But let's just focus today on how to stop a panic attack in its tracks. Now, the background on this is that there is really only one way to do it, and that is through the breath. And the reason it's through the breath is because a panic attack is triggered, as I've already mentioned, in our autonomic nervous system. So it resides in the body rather than in the mind, if you like. And it's very connected to our primitive brain. So we can't think our way out of it. So why can't we think our way out of a panic attack? Well, the human brain, or at least the part of the brain that we associate with being human, that physiologically is different from animals, is called the prefrontal cortex, and that's the latest part of the brain to have developed. And this system of panic attacks, of going into overwhelm, of our autonomic nervous system taking over our system, predates the prefrontal cortex. So in other words, what happens is we perceive a trigger, not necessarily consciously, but we perceive a trigger somewhere in our system, and it bypasses the prefrontal cortex and sends our system into a fight or flight reaction. And the only way through that is by the breath and changing how we are in our body. So there are three fairly simple steps I can walk you through, and I'm going to do that in a moment. And this is how you calm your nervous system down and move from a state of fight or flight, where the sympathetic nervous system has taken over, to rest or digest, where you're able to process the emotions that you're feeling. So, let's do it. Okay, I'm going to walk you through three fairly simple steps now that you can do without anybody else around, and actually these have nothing much at all to do with psychotherapy. What they've got to do with is being in our bodies and controlling our autonomic nervous system. These are also steps that I use with my clients and teach them so that they are able to remain in their bodies as we talk about difficult material and not move into a state of feeling overwhelmed and then becoming re-traumatized. So I'm going to stand side onto the camera so that you can see my profile, because this involves actually working with the body a little bit. So I'm going to look away from the camera and allow you just to watch me. So first of all, I'm bringing my awareness to my feet and noticing where my weight is balanced. So if I rock ever so slightly back and forth, which you are hopefully picking up on camera, I can feel the difference between putting my weight onto my heels, which actually makes me feel quite unstable, and interestingly is embedded in the language we use, at least here in England, which is to be on the back foot, which makes me feel defensive, unstable on my feet. So the position I want you to assume is to put your weight just behind the balls of your feet. And if we think about embodiment, if you imagine being a goalkeeper would have their weight just behind the balls of the feet, and bringing a tiny bit of softness or flexibility into your knees. So I'm not talking about bending your knees and bobbing up and down, but just a very slight little bit of flexibility. And this position is one of feeling alert on your feet and able to move if you need to. Now, here are the 3 steps now. If you bring your attention to your belly, and for those of you who aren't sure what I mean, I'm touching the area of my belly, which is immediately above the belt line. Now, all of us have got a belly, no matter how fit we are. The rib cage stops here, and our belly is able to expand and contract in order to enable us to eat and take in food, but also to enable us to breathe. So the correct way of breathing is breathing into our bellies, and that looks like this. So notice on the out breath, I'm not pushing it out like that. I'm simply allowing my diaphragm to expel the air. So I'm drawing the air right down to my belt line and letting it go, all the time being aware of my feet on the ground. So this is an exercise of mindfulness, but crucially, you're going to keep your eyes open throughout this. I want you to stay in the room with yourself and your surroundings, rather than closing your eyes where the potential is for you to become further overwhelmed or dissociated. So breathing into our bellies, we slowly bring our attention up through the body to the throat. Now, as this is your body, you can give your body instructions. And we're constantly giving our body instructions, whether that's to move a particular way, whether that's to hold our hands in a particular way. So I would like you to ask your throat to relax. And that might sound like an odd thing to say. If I ask my throat to relax, it brings in some softness around the jawline. It's not the same as telling my shoulders to relax. It's just bringing in some softness, which is then running from the throat down through my sternum, right down to my belly. And all the while we keep breathing. So that's step 2. And step 3 is to bring your attention to your tongue. Now, many of us, particularly when we're feeling anxious or overwhelmed, we push our tongue against the front of our teeth or against the roof of the mouth. So I'd like you to tell your tongue to relax and allow it just to hang in your mouth. And if I do that, as well as telling my throat to relax and my belly to relax, my jaw softens further. My tongue just lies in my mouth. And I'm creating a state of calm all the way from my temple right down to my belt line. And we would also call this our core. So what I'm instructing my body to do is to relax. So I'm overriding the fear response in the autonomic nervous system, which is causing me to feel anxious or causing me to have a panic attack. All the while breathing and just being in our bodies. And whilst you're doing that, I would invite you to bring your senses online. So first of all, I'm bringing my ears online. Now I'm in a busy part of Brighton and Hove on the 3rd floor, and there's quite a lot of traffic noise outside, so I can hear the traffic rumbling by. And the next of my senses that I bring online is my eyes. So directly in front of me outside the window is a large tree, and it's swaying in the wind. It's quite a breezy day today. So I'm just watching the tree move, noticing where my eyes fall, all the while breathing and being in my body. So if I turn back towards the camera, it's perfectly possible to remain in this state of calm whilst moving around. So it's something you can practice, for example, walking down the street and creating a soft belly, a soft throat and a soft tongue, and just noticing how much easier it is to navigate people coming towards you or other obstacles, that it seems much more flowing and much more seamless. So as well as overcoming panic attacks, this is a really good strategy for just creating calm and changing your experience of being in the world by changing your relationship to your body. I hope it helps, and please leave any comments. I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have. Thank you very much.